Before I get started, I want to be clear to avoid any misunderstanding. I'm going to shift the paradigm of reality, and I don't want there to be any confusion. The Earth is flat. All matter expands as it moves away from the North Pole. So despite the Gleason projection showing the expansion on the flat Earth map, it does not mean that things are actually larger in the south. On the projection, it's larger. It's technically larger, but due to everything being relative to the observer, this expansion is not noticeable. So that's why a distance looks shorter in the north and looks wider in the south. It's the exact same distance if it's the exact same amount of degrees. 15 degrees is 15 degrees, and it takes the same amount of time to traverse 15 degrees across lines of longitude, whether you're in the north or the south, because matter expands as you move away from the polar center. That's because this is all a metaphysical realm, and all matter is light. So as you expand, as you move south, everything expands with you. So relative to the observer, this expansion is not noticeable, but the maps prove it. Mercator does the adjustment to make 15 degrees mean 15 degrees despite the size difference, because all matter has expanded. In the Mercator projection, it's taken all that into account, which is why it works. The reality adjustment 111 is kilometers per degree, or it's 69.2 miles per degree. But pull up any map of Earth, any map. Globe, flat, doesn't matter. Look at the longitude lines. The longitude lines are the lines that are running from north to south. So I want you to see something that you've probably looked at your entire life. You've seen it, you've noticed it, you know probably that they're lines of longitude, but never actually noticed what it actually means. Watch what the longitude lines do on the globe. Starting at the North Pole, they all meet at a single point. Then, they do what? They expand. And that's on every globe model, radiating outward. But, it's like spokes on a wheel, but getting farther and farther apart as it moves away from the polar center. But where do they reach maximum separation? At the equator. Maximum distance between longitudinal lines. That's on the globe model. Okay, it's a simple pattern so far. North Pole, expanding. Equator, maximum. Now keep watching. What happens south of the equator? South of the equator, the lines start converging again. The pattern reverses. They start getting closer together. Closer, closer, until they meet at what? The spherical South Pole. Another single point on their globe model. So the pattern on the globe is contraction, expansion. The North Pole point expands all the way to the equator. That's the maximum expansion. And then the contraction to the South Pole. And the geometry reverses at the equator. It's the expansion in the north, contraction in the south. Opposite patterns, opposite functions, simple observation. Everyone seems to agree. Now, here's the question. Can you navigate using a model where the geometry reverses halfway through? Now, let me show you something. This is actual navigation code from a real navigation system over the ocean. Section A, standard geodesic spherical model, status disabled by admin override. The reason, globe math yields incorrect ETAs for routes south of the equator. Read that again. Globe math yields incorrect ETAs for routes south of the equator. And thank you, Flat Earth Dave, for putting this out there. This is the spherical model. The globe. Disabled. Disabled by admin override because it doesn't work. Specifically, doesn't work where? It doesn't work in the ocean, south of the equator, because they can't do the proper amount of gas. They don't know how much gas to put, fuel, the ETAs are off. This is where the geometry reverses, where expansion becomes contraction on their globe, where the pattern flips on their globe. But in reality, there is no pattern flip. So what do they use? They use planar projection, active coordinates for polar plane, center, North Pole. Degrees to North Pole offsets. This is map coordinates on a polar plane. They use a flat plane with the North Pole at the center for navigation south of the equator. In radial expansion from that center, not expansion then contraction, continuous expansion is the reason that they must do this, because the pattern doesn't actually reverse. And I'm going to explain all of this. And this is mind-blowing stuff. This is real relativity. Simple Euclidean distance on a flat plane. Apply reality adjustment to match observed travel times. They calculate distances on a flat plane using simple planar geometry, and it works. And then in whatever the system they're using, they'll show you a sphere as if you're navigating on a sphere. But the sphere has to be disabled because they can't navigate south of the equator using the sphere, because it doesn't work, because the real patterns don't actually reverse at the equator. Everything is radial from the North Pole. It's all expansion, and it's all relative to the observer. So why does the sphere fail south of the equator? Because of the geometric reversal at the equator. In the north, the distance between longitude lines is expanding from the pole, which is exactly the same as what happens on the flat Earth map. The Gleason projection, the formula for expanding radial pattern. In the south, the distance between longitude lines is contracting to the south pole, which is not aligned with reality, so they need to use a whole different formula that actually uses reality in order to navigate. It's two different geometric functions. You can't use one equation for both because two different things are happening. The sphere assumes symmetry, equal north and south. But if reality is continuous expansion from one center, not two centers, north and south poles, both expanding towards the equator, but all one center expanding outward all the way to the Antarctic perimeter, and having one center with the North Pole only, then the south isn't contracting toward the pole when it gets down there. The south is still expanding from the North Pole, just at a greater radius. It's completely different geometry, and this breaks the entire globe model. The sphere can't calculate this. So it fails. It will generate incorrect ETAs, so they won't be able to know how much gas to use, specifically south of the equator, exactly where the code says that it fails. This is what brings it home. Everyone knows the Mercator projection. And the Mercator projection is best for navigation, especially long distance navigation. This is universally acknowledged. Look at the Mercator map. You notice something? Antarctica looks huge. Greenland looks massive. They call this just map distortion. You can't trust Mercator for sizes. That's actually extremely interesting that they say that it distorts reality. Okay, but let me ask you this. If Mercator distorts reality and it's wrong, and the globe is accurate and right, then why do navigators use the wrong map? Why is the distorted projection better for navigation? Why does the accurate sphere get disabled in the code? Because the distortion is the reality. Mercator shows expansion. Northern latitudes compressed, lines closer together, southern latitudes expanded, lines further apart. But on the Mercator map, it puts them all where 15 degrees is 15 degrees. It factors in the expansion into the map. And it makes Antarctica massive because it is massive. It's at maximum expansion at the outer periphery. The distortion isn't distortion, it's the actual spatial metric in reality. But as we expand, all matter expands with us. And that's why the Mercator map is used for navigation, because the expansion is already factored in. And this is huge. So navigators use degrees instead of miles or kilometers because degrees work. This is why Mercator works, because the expansion is already factored into the projection. The varying latitude spacing and longitude spacing on the Mercator is not distortion. That's reality. So longitude lines on a globe expand then contract, two opposite geometric functions. Navigation code uses the sphere, it gets disabled. The reason is it's incorrect ETAs south of the equator. Why? Navigation code using flat earth plane is active. Reason, it actually works. The Mercator projection is distorted, but best for navigation? Why aren't lat-long lines equidistant like a sphere should predict? Because it's not a sphere. The geometry is continuous radial expansion from one center, the North Pole. They have to align their maps with reality. And when this is the map, but the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here, they have to make that make sense in their formula. In the formula, the 111 basically converts all degrees to miles or kilometers. This is why the flat plane model works. This is why Mercator works. This is why the sphere had to be disabled, because their model is wrong and the longitude lines prove it. The navigation code proves it. The Mercator projection proves it. You can see it now with your own eyes. They had to disable their own model because it doesn't work. And they won't tell you why, because it reveals what they're hiding. The Earth is not a globe. The geometry is not symmetric, and navigation proves it. Every single flight, every single trip across the ocean, everything that's calculated is calculated on a flat plane and then converted to show you a big sphere on your screen. Because the flat plane is what actually works. Their model is wrong, and they know it.